everyone.
Hello.
How are we?
Great.
Well, it's nice to be here tonight. I'm honored to speak here, to read here, again, for this semester. So I'm excited to share my poems with you. Fortunately, most of you might know my work already since I think all of it has been written this semester for workshop. But the general theme here is that it's sort of lighthearted in the first two poems, and the rest of the poems sort of become more serious and sort of more contemplative. Although all of them sort of have that. Anyway, this first poem is called On Deep Time and Evolution, 1996. And this poem is about when I was 5 years old, and I sort of I don't know, became conscious about the world, and I realized there was so much to learn now. And so, as a consequence, time sort of moved much more quickly than it has now, because I had a lot of novel experiences, including climbing trees. Trying to, anyway, and failing. On Deep Time and Evolution, 1996. I see it in my walk, fists parentheticals to my body, the body wanting to become a roof over moving sheets of mud and gutter leaf, oranged, never becoming. It was the year of a knee-first thud under loosened oak branches, false evidence that my fixed apeness was fading. Still, double vision persists when I dream of the self as only human, or a product of 5 million late summer survivals, the self as curled root, lonely apex. It was the year I made flipbooks, each pen blue dot's wild expansion and knotted yearning to break from old skin. This poem was mostly an imitation of Paget Powell, and he wrote this book called Interrogative Mood, which was all composed by questions, and I was very fascinated by that. Here I've included an epigraph from his book. The poem is called Question of the Day, and here's the quote. Are you happy? Do we need galoshes? Are bluebirds perfect? Do you know the distinctions, empirical or theoretical, between moss and lichen? Would you agree that the outside of any tall building with sudden points of dust and stone is reminiscent of an electron microscope image of a single-used toothbrush bristle, white curtained windows like discontinuations of plaque, with each turret a dented ridge from overuse? Would you rather it be called wear and tear? Are you annoyed by this phrase as I am? Or is there a sternness in the words reasonable and tensile strength? What do you make of a person refusing to call a lover by their given name? Does the part of the word become dirtied by default of this refusal? Under what circumstances would you answer yes to do you have time tonight if the intention of said question was only to discuss the loneliness in a repaved sidewalk? At which point would you stop keeping your word? What if it were to contain equal parts of keeping and unkeeping a habit? This one is called Clark Street Aleatoric, and this is from my friend Chris Henry. I visited him. He lives in my hometown on a street where my grandparents used to live on for a few years after I was born, so there's a lot of history there. Yeah, you know Clark Street, yeah.
I know Chris.
So, yeah, this is sort of a nostalgic poem, but anyway, I visited him very recently one weekend, and I walked through his front door, and he greeted me in song. So I thought that poem needed to happen after that. So, all right, here goes. Clark Street Aleatoric. The songs you played about pendulums and what can be known were not built on chance. They bore past lives. The sound grew towards sentience. 2 winters before I left that street, and later this town, you asked me for singing lessons, and parallel branches the shape of sad arms found your kitchen window, split a polyrhythm of loose floorboard and other front doors shutting like a chorus of F sharps. Can tell when a car oscillates between the walnut bridge and iron plates, what remains bouncing from your walls tin can style. From space, I imagine this ensemble dissolving into white noise, a product only of chance. So here commences the serious portion of the reading. So, yes, it's gonna, the last poem especially is just all right, this one's called Sun is a Red Giant. And some background about this poem is that it was on I wrote it sort of set on my 23rd birthday. It was this year. And I spent it at a Christian resort in a coastal city near Chennai, India, where I visited my mom. And another thing to know is that she gave birth to me when she was 23. So it was a weird birthday. Sun is a red giant. Approaching meteor made from shadow metal, creeping light past half-shut airplane windows. Morning, then morning, then morning, the only ones in summer. Except, mother, when you thumped your palms against forehead like digging, and suddenly black ants emerge in a swarm, a moment we were both 23. Take this swift blessing near the bench outside our room, as thrown tea in a plastic cup reflects the sun as a temporary red giant. I understand that suffering, like time, is relative to the observer, even in mourning doves after the fact, or silver-specked mongooses overwhelmed by the border between sand and tar, a forest of cacti, and what is to come, a new form of nothing. This one is called Snooze Button. I'm not incredibly happy with the title, but couldn't think of one yet. Sort of, as of now, it sort of seems most accurate to the themes in the poem. It's about the disorientation of not really knowing where you are when you first wake up. I experience that a lot nowadays. I don't know why. All right, this one's called Snooze Button. 6:30. My eyes are the flesh in steamed jackfruit seeds my mother boiled into a thickened sambar. Earlier, I dreamt I was at the top of a Ferris wheel in the sand, painted Rakshasa's tongue on the side worn off from the power of a child's fingernail. Even so, I winced. If I shift, there is a slight tilt backwards to the backwaters unraveling cloud film, 40 bulbous crowheads, the air, a tinge of urine, or my brain still making sense of a false breakfast. 7:15. She picks hibiscus at 6, picks the ones to fix to a fair forehead tinged with a paste of saffron and amber ash. Am certain my plastic floor is instead my mother's gray dotted green mosaic. Want to spill rose milk on it to make sure. 8 o'clock. To be wiser of time bells, rainforest drumbeat. To be wise of infinity traps, but trapped anyway. This one is called Study of the Common Cold. I wrote about this poem because I had a particularly bad cold this fall. And I had to write a poem dedicated just to it. Sort of had to immortalize the cold. 1. Head. Drunk heavy, the back of it pinched into a filament of night, but the thoughts within linger in all the hours like a raw sadness. Hold the temples with pressure, swirl counterclockwise, apply to affected area. To break open would reveal the shape of sleep, a supersymmetric space. 2. Hands. Plumeria milks from the stem onto the webbed valley of my index and bruised thumb as I pick one for mother. Her street is abrupt, cool tremble. She checks for a fever, said my hands contained healing properties. Since the honeyed parts in these palms changed the color of uneven wind kicking up shreds of tinfoil from under the branches. 3. Eyes. Commas turned on their heads, chunks of obsidian chucked into a lake soup thick with algal blooming. 4. Body. Daybreak, fever break, lying in the bed for too long, creates grids of green in chiaroscuro, shows the imbalance of space-time concentrated in each impression. And the last poem is about my mother's birthday, which was on November 11th. And it's also about how superstitions can divide a family, especially from being in an Indian family. It's definitely true. All right, November 11th. Mother, you were born on a moving train between a place where roofs were only made from palm leaf to a flat named after the goddess of strength, resistant to earthquakes. You landed on a pool of maroon gold silk in the bottom bunk belonging to a woman who spoke in evening crow calls. I called her Awa for 9 years. She blamed your bad luck birth when later she discovered she could no longer eat jaggery from steel tumblers. I knew you believed the words "she was meant to be born in a still room" when you left open a Reader's Digest article on a study finding a possible genetic predisposition towards becoming permanently unlovable. That happy birthday became a song of mourning, song of easy omen, song of my blank face half frozen in the corner of an old screen, song of I pray to my God, song of your widow's peak shaped into a snake-shifting clay path. Thank you.